What's up, guys? This is Jakob. I'm Content AI Manager, and I'm helping entrepreneurs around the world with their content strategy, creating content for your business with AI technology to scale your business and create more leads, more clients, more cooperation partners. That's my main aim. Welcome to a new episode of the Content AI Show, where I speak with experts around the world who are thought leaders within the AI space, who create their own software or have big expertise on AI technology. And I'm very excited to speak. I think the first professor that I had, Johan Steyn, he's an author, he's a thought leader on AI and automation, Business Day contributor. He's the chair of the special interest group on AI and robotics. And also very interesting, he's a global AI ambassador, which for Swiss Cognitive, where I'm also an author. Very excited to speak with you about AI. Welcome to the show, Johan.
Jakob, thank you. What a wonderful privilege and honor. And I look forward to our conversation. Sorry, I think we've got a bit of a lag. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I think everything fine so far. Cool. Very excited to speak today with you. Before we jump into the questions about AI, can you, in a nutshell, introduce yourself? I mean, I made a short intro, but I would like to hear how you introduce yourself. So you're also, I mean, you're a professor, and we chatted about this shortly for an Indian university about digital marketing, which is also I'm curious about that one. So how would you introduce yourself on a cocktail party to a stranger?
Okay. Cool, Jakob. Thank you. Yes, so look, I've been a management consultant for many years. The last 5 or 6 years, I started working in the AI and automation space. As you've mentioned, I write a lot weekly for Business Day newspaper and for a number of other publications. I do a lot of conference speaking on this topic. But yes, so I'm actually pivoting my career as of today because I finished off with PwC end of last month, great firm. I loved working there. But now I'm going to do more freelance consulting work, lots more writing. And as you've alluded to, I'm going to start teaching remotely at a university in India called Watson. So in their bachelor's and MBA program around using these kind of technologies from a business perspective. But if I can just add, my greatest passion is the societal impact of this technology. What will it do for the future of our children? And hopefully we can unpack that a bit as we go on this meeting today.
Yeah, would love to, really. That's societal impact with AI technology, because there are many misconceptions when it comes to AI, in my opinion. And that's the reason why I do this show. But I'm just curious, just for the professor and the remote work on this university, how was this happening? So did you just reach out to this university and say, hey, I want to work remote for you? Also, just curious.
No, that's a good question. Now, look, the president of the university and I have, about 3 years ago, I invited him to be a guest on my own YouTube channel. And we had a lovely conversation, and we often would share ideas on email or on WhatsApp or on LinkedIn. And they've asked me last year to do the opening keynote for their bachelor's students and also for their MBA students. So we've just been collaborating a lot. Yeah, and then a few months back, out of the blue, he sent me this offer to become a professor. So I didn't look for it. It came to me, and it was a wonderful opportunity. Hopefully it'll start now on their new academic year in July. I think in the next week or two, I'll actually start lecturing. So yes, and then I'm also working with other local universities here in Johannesburg and in Cape Town around executive education. You know, one of the challenges is a lot of these academics who are very smart people, many of them have never actually worked in the trenches, implemented this technology, so they can very well teach the textbook. But hopefully one of the benefits I can bring is that I can also relate it to experience I've had dealing with customers, seeing why these initiatives often fail and the like. So yes, I look forward to it. I was born to teach, so I'm glad I can start making some money out of it.
Awesome, that's great. So this is really, when I look, I mean, I studied political science. When I look back, what I'm actually executing from what I learned, it's not pretty much from what I learned during the university time, which is, I mean, yeah, I think for most people that's the case. So I would love to if I could go back and choose a professor like you who executed what he's talking about, that would be really great. So one last follow-up question to that one. So what was your show about where you interviewed the director?
So it's interesting, when I started getting involved in AI projects, I started reaching out to as many people as I could, also globally.
Yeah.
People with like at Google, Facebook, and others. And I saw this professor on LinkedIn and saw some of the things he was publishing. Yeah, so I had a number of guests, most of them fairly well known, especially authors in this space. But what surprised me is how, as long as obviously you share an initial professional message with people, most people are quite willing to chat with you as long as they know they're not going to waste their time. So
Yeah.
yes, I just asked people about the work they're doing. There were some academics. There were also people working in healthcare using AI and education, which I loved. I actually stopped that channel. It's still on YouTube, but I might, because I have a bit more time for it, kick it off again, interviewing people like that.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So let's dig deep into the AI topic. So what is one of the first memories that you had when it comes to AI? So was it a movie? Was it a book? What was it in your career? And what was the shifting moment where you said, okay, I have to spend more time with this topic of AI. This is a serious thing that I have to invest in. Was there a turning point for you?
Yes. So I worked for one of the local large banks here in Johannesburg, and we did a proof of concept with IBM. I work more in the software engineering, DevOps, quality engineering space, and I never heard of AI before. Yes, I saw the movie AI by Steven Spielberg, but for me, it was absolutely just fiction. The robots taking over. But when I saw what the technology could do in this proof of concept, I realized, man, our lives are going to change. This is the smartest technology I've ever seen. And I just started reading every book I could read, and then eventually started speaking to so many people. Essentially, everything I know about AI is self-taught, because I was never formally trained in it. And you called me an expert earlier. Sometimes I think it's not the case, because this technology is moving so quickly. Just to keep up with it is quite a mission. And there's a lot that I don't know, but I know people who do know. So also collaborating with people, because we all have our different strengths and different areas of experience. But yeah, so there was that proof of concept when I was at the bank. And that's where my career started changing. Also, what I realized is that a lot of people who are very technical in this field struggle to explain it in simple and in business terms. And that's where I kind of found my niche, because I'm not a technically trained person. I have to understand my customer's business problem. I've solved more problems with Excel than with AI, because you have to step back and say, forget the technology. What? And I've got a lot of stories from the trenches, so to speak, that I can maybe tell you while we are together here today.
Yeah, but when you mean you with Excel, you mean there's an easier thing to create instead of creating an AI, you should create a spreadsheet and look how to solve the problem, or what exactly do you mean with that statement?
Okay. Look, a lot of my meetings start with customers saying, we need to use AI, or we want to use AI. Sometimes they will even say, we need to AI our business. And then I don't even know what they mean. So I have to tell them, what do you mean we need to AI our business? It feels to me that 80% of my customer interactions are educating customers, because there's so much hype and misunderstanding around this technology. But if their fundamental processes are not mature, which is often the case, if their ways of working as a team is immature, if it is a toxic culture, bad leadership, you can't automate those things. You can't use technology to fix it. So a lot of organizations actually need smarter ways of working and automating. And there you can use Excel, you can use API calls, for instance. You can even later on use robotic process automation. But I often laugh, because, as I said, they will say, we want to use AI, and I will say, to do what? And then they're already confused. So AI is of course powerful, and AI is really the way to go for businesses. But there's so much foundational work you need to do to make sure your organization is ready for it, anticipating the impact it will have on people. What do you do with people whose jobs you automate? What are you going to do with them? Can you reskill them? Your whole organizational design will have to change. The whole impact and interaction with your customers will have to change. So, it's almost like playing with nuclear power. It is incredibly, exponentially powerful technology. It can also destroy your business if you don't do it right. And that's where I lead customers on this journey. Obviously, make sure your data is mature, you adhere to privacy regulations and the like. But I really try and bring it back to the people, because it should be a people-first initiative and not a technology-first initiative. And I can tell you a lot of stories about that as we go. But that's why I say it's the problems customers think AI should fix, they can fix by Excel or some simple technology or just some simple ways of working together. But they're trying to look for the silver bullet, and no technology can fix something that is that broken,
Yeah, I absolutely love it, because so you mentioned several things that are super important. So one thing is, when you look on projects or on digitalization projects that didn't work out, the number one reason why it didn't work is because of the culture, because people are not involved in the transformation. That's the number one reason, because people don't want it, they don't trust it, they mistrust it, and they don't want to use it. It's not because the technology is not working, it's most often because the culture is, like you said, it's a toxic culture, and people don't want to use it. That's the number one thing that why these projects fail oftentimes. So, and one thing that is also very important, what you mentioned. So maybe I ask it as a question. So can you explain the difference between AI and automation? Because I have the feeling oftentimes they are used as synonyms, and people think of it, this is the same thing. Yeah, we want AI, we want to automate everything. But there's a very important difference between both. Can you go deep and a little bit deeper into that one?
Sure. Jakob, the premise of your question is so true, because people do think AI is automating stuff.
Yeah.
So the difference is, for me, a simple way to explain it. Because there's a lot of companies selling AI platforms, branding it AI, but it is actually just smartly automating things. If it can work autonomously, in other words, without human involvement, if it can learn from patterns as it goes, teach itself, and if it can give you answers to questions you did not think of asking it, then it's artificial intelligence. But if we think of robotic process automation, or even these days what they call intelligent or hyper automation, it's starting to more and more incorporate machine learning models and AI and the like, but it is still what I call a dumb technology. Robotic process automation will do typically back office, repetitive, administrative tasks, and it's very good at what it's built for. It is a lot more accurate than humans. It works 24/7. It doesn't strike. It doesn't go on leave. It doesn't join a union. But it doesn't think. It doesn't learn. It essentially is almost like a servant or a slave. You program it what to do, and it does it. Yes, and you have to look after it. You have to make sure you keep your processes updated, the RPA algorithms updated. But there's no learning or thinking or anything smart about it. The moment it can start think for itself, identify patterns and the like, that is AI. So very few companies that uses what they think is AI is actually just smartly automating. And I can give you some examples of projects I've worked in where I saw the differences.
Yeah, sure. Would love if you can mention case studies. That would be great. Yes, definitely.
Sure. So I worked with a large mobile phone provider, part of a global mobile phone company, but quite a big, maybe one of the largest here in Africa. And they wanted to see how could they monetize their data. In other words, how can they sell their data in a way that applies to privacy regulation and to responsible use. Our mobile phone providers collect 500 to 800 data points on us almost every second. Of course, they know where you are because they can triangulate you geospatially, between which 3 mobile phone towers are you. But they can also, to a large extent, know who you associate with, if it's their other customers, where you go, what kind of applications you're using on your phone. So they can form quite a behavioral model on who you are. And according to that, market services to you and hopefully give you better customer service. But the use case that we were looking at is to these, when you drive on the freeway, on the highway, you get these big advertising boards on the side. And you also get more and more of these dynamic advertising boards. So it's like a TV screen and it changes. But and it depends on the perimeters you put in, but say in the 2 or 3 miles before a car driver on the freeway gets to seeing the advertising board, if we can take the data of people on this mobile network and dynamically interpret it, so we know that the bulk of the traffic that will come to this sign in the next 2 or 3 minutes are men between the ages of 18 and 35, as an example. Then the board can change with more sports advertising, for instance, or men healthcare and skincare stuff. The same for women, for a certain age group. But so that is happening so quickly. That uses artificial intelligence, because the amount of data to process and make decisions on what advertising to show, there's no human involved in that. Humans cannot get involved. So typically where there are very, very big data sets involved, and especially when it is making decisions quickly, these decisioning models, that's typically where AI plays a great role. But to look at your data reactively, so for instance, if you're as a business, say, how many of our customers bought product X over the last month, and which areas in the country are they based, and what's their demography, are they mostly male, female, etc. That you can simply automate without using too much. That's essentially dashboarding, But if you want to see it in real time, that is AI. And also if you can have the predictions of real-time predictions of what your customers will do, that's also AI. So the speed of using great big data sets, interpreting in real time, actioning in real time without human involvement, showing future predictions that's predominantly accurate, that typically is AI and not automation. I hope that helps.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, fascinating. And just curious, is this technology already executed? So you can, when I'm driving in South Africa, I'm as somebody, I'm already seeing this, or was this a concept?
It was a concept. The customer did not go ahead with it yet. But so I don't know. I don't think it's actually happening. There are use cases from other areas in the world. Another example I can maybe quickly give you is if you have a shopping center or a shopping mall, then the shops will do advertising, in the press, in the newspapers, on TV, and then they also have advertising in their shop windows. So if you think again, if it's a female clothing shop, or they sell healthcare or facial care products, then they can determine the success of their advertising on the one hand by whether the sales are increasing or not. That's a simple way of determining it. But if we go back to the mobile phone monetized data, is if we can see from the data, and you anonymize it, because from a privacy point of view, you have to take out the identifiable like name, surname, social security number, and the like out of the data. But if the footfall, in other words, if there are more females of that target age group entering the area where this shopping mall is situated, that will be interesting, because now why are more females at a certain time of a certain day coming to the mall? Is it related to the advertising? But if the sales don't increase in an equivalent way, there's a good chance that your advertising is not effective, because you have been drawing more people of that specific target market, but your sales are not increasing. And then you can start analyzing, maybe we should change the color of our advertising, put it in different areas, like in the parking bay where you park or whatever. And then again, you can compare the amount of people of that age group and demography entering the area, whether the sales increase or not. Again, it can happen in absolute real time, and it can give you future predictions.
Yeah. Yeah. But the second example is more an automation example, right? Or is it also an AI?
Yeah, look, it's I would say it's AI because you're not really
Yeah.
automating anything.
Okay.
It is essentially just using that geospatial mobile phone data to sift through all that data using machine learning models to interpret it. Now, where automation could come in is again if the shopping mall and these shops had dynamically changeable advertising signs, then they
Yeah.
could then you automate that process. In other words, what we advertise in the store on these smart TVs will change dynamically depending on the profile of the customers in the store at the moment. You know, so that's then where automation kicks in. Because remember, AI is good at telling you what's happening in the data now, obviously in the past, but it can also through predictive analytics show you what most likely will happen in the future. But executing work to be done is where automation comes in. You know, so it could also be if you have a company and your customers are predominantly interacting with you on their mobile app, you can predict churn. So from the customer's spending patterns, their profile, you can get a good idea, are we potentially going to lose this customer? But also through analyzing their behavioral data, you will know that sending them a text message or a WhatsApp or an email at 6 o'clock in the evening might be the worst idea because they most likely have children. That's when they make dinner. They're not going to take your call or a call center call. But other people it might be perfect for them because they're in their car driving back from work. So that executing what we see in the data, sending dynamically created offers to the customer within the perimeters we've set, without human involvement. That's also then where AI typically would play a role if we can take that as a use case.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. I mean, I'm fascinated about the potential of this technology, and I agree with you when you say there's a lot of hype also involved into this topic, so that people or business owners think, well, everybody is doing something with AI. We should also do, otherwise we don't look fresh and modern and cool. And but it's always the case. So what do you want to achieve, or why do you need AI? So I have sometimes this feeling that people don't understand AI and they just want to implement it because everybody else is doing it. So that's my observation so far with some people. Yeah, but not all of them, but some.
Right. Yeah, it's almost a fear of missing out. If I'm a bank and my competitor bank is using AI, I better do it. But for what? Because for all you know, they don't even getting it right at all. The other problem I find in dealing with customers, Jacob, is that often the chief executive officer or chief information officer will set a target for his or her teams. That by the end of this financial year, 80% of your processes should be AI'd, whatever that means. Now, people are going to do it because their annual bonuses and their increases and stuff depend on it. Now they start AIing or automating just stuff, just to say we've done 80%. But it most likely makes no business sense at all. So that's also a problem that that I deal with customers about. Don't target your divisions to use AI or automation. Target them on efficiency, because efficiency is more important than automation or AI. And efficiency can just enough to the printer. So they spend so much time every day walking to the printer, coming back. So move the printer quicker or closer. That'll increase the efficiency and effectiveness. No AI, automation, no technology. So it's really about using common sense to see what will make people work better, become more productive, and also to help your customers in a quicker and more satisfactory way. Often it's not technology to fix, it's ways of working. It's how we work that's causing the problem. Until we fix those things, no AI or machine learning will fix companies' problems for them. Don't give a target to your people to use AI.
Yeah, makes total sense. So I like the efficiency thing, especially when you're self-employed. This is the main focus. So because in my case, I'm using AI technology, GPT-3, because I can create blog articles, social media captions much faster than before. So I don't say that everything is AI produced. I always say when it comes to blog articles, 60% of the blog article is AI produced, and the 40% is my own magic that I have experience as a digital editor and as a content manager that I'm putting in. So it's helping me. It's saving me time, but there are still things to do, and it makes me more efficient, like you said. Yeah, that's
Exactly.
cool.
So it's what you've just said there, Jakov, is a great example of the technology and the human working together. Because, if you had no experience in writing these articles, if you did not understand this technology, I mean, we know there are so many tools with which you can spin up articles. But if you don't know what you're talking about, the AI might really talk a lot of nonsense in creating that article. So you still have to bring,
actually.
it's almost, it's let it do the heavy lifting. Let it maybe create the outline and some of the bulk of it, but you still have to use your common sense and expertise on top of that to make sure it is a good looking article. We can't automate that or AI that. Your expertise and your experience. That is something that we can't automate. And people try and do it, but that's why I often speak about take the robot out of the human. So let the robots do what they do good. But there's a lot that the robots, the AI can't do, which humans can do. And that is, as I said, using our experience, our intuition, empathy, altruism. Sometimes sitting in front of a customer saying, it looks like you're going through a hard time. Let's go drink a coffee. Let's talk about it. You can't automate that. You can't automate human interactions and stuff. So let the robots do what they're made for. Don't try and get them to do stuff that only humans can do, and the other way around.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that leads a little bit into this thing of misconceptions within the AI. But one just follow-up question, well, because you spoke about clients. When you consult clients, because I have one guy that I interviewed, he is in the AI space, and what they are actually doing is they are tracking what are the employees doing over the business days, what are the actual tasks that they have, and what is one of the biggest tasks that they have, and is there a way to automate it or build an AI that helps to make the process easier and faster? This is one approach. What is your approach, or how do you consult clients to implement AI in a strategic way? What is your approach?
Look, I'll always start with what are the business goals you're trying to achieve. So let's initially forget about the technology. And I've had meetings with customers where I said, especially in that first meeting, is let's agree that for the next hour, we're not going to reference AI, machine learning, IoT, edge, cloud, nothing. We're not going to talk about technology at all. And the reason is because they've already made up their minds. We need AI. They read the Gartner reports, the Forrester reports. They go to webinars or conferences. Now, and that's not bad, but they've already made up their minds that how can you bring us AI to help us? And I'm thinking, but we're not even talking about the right topic yet. So what are their business objectives? So a lot of business owners or C-suite executives might say, we're losing market share. Our competitor bank or telco is stealing our customers. Okay, but why? And that could be because we're not servicing them quickly enough. Our pricing model is out, and so forth. So there's a lot of things to fix to solve that problem that at this stage is not necessarily technology. It could be that we don't know if we're compliant with privacy regulation. So regulation and compliance is a big thing, especially in the banks. There are different ways to look at it. It could be that we need to lower our costs. So how can we automate? And unfortunately, in that conversation, it is about which people can we let go. I hate those conversations from an ethical point of view because, I often say to customers, but are you not planning to grow in the future? And the example I use is if you have 100 people, yes, through automating, through efficiencies, through better dashboards and the like, you can most likely get 80 people to do the work that the 100 are doing at the moment. But are you not? So let's turn it around. What about the future? So in the future, you might need 120 people. But the idea of automation and also to look after humans is empower the 100 you have at the moment so that you don't need the 20 in 6 months, rather than let's get rid of people now and then in 6 months we go, oh shucks, we should have not let go of them, kind of thing. But so to answer your question, Jakob, it's what are you trying to fix? Now, that's often where the problem starts because clients don't know what they need to fix. You can explain the symptoms. So, as an example, I mean, if my internet fiber line is down, I'll call the contact center or chat to the bot. I don't know what's wrong. I can just tell them what I'm experiencing. So my experience is I can't access the internet. Or when I stream videos, they're slow. Or at 8 o'clock at night, suddenly I can't. So I can't give them a technical reason. I'm explaining what I'm experiencing. And often clients will do that as well. They will tell you what their frustrations are, but they can't always tell you what their problem is. And that's also, as a management consultant, we have to guide them and ask the right questions so that together with the customer, we can get to, okay, so this is actually the thing to fix. Because often the symptoms are not always related to the thing we actually have to fix, if that makes sense. But it's really stepping back, forget about the tech, think with the business on your head or hat on your head, and try and guide them to what are the things they need to fix and what are they need to fix first. And then you build that strategy and that journey in a way that makes sense to them.
Yeah, love it. So forget the technology. This is something that I already heard a couple of times because I mean, I'm also always focused on so what new tools out there, what can I test and things like that. But you have to go back and focus on your goals. Yeah, that's important, and that's a cool thing. The basics and the fundamentals are still true. It doesn't matter how much technology we have. If you don't have a goal and don't know what's your vision, then you have a problem.
It's so simple. The problem is, what's the problem? They often let the technologists in the company, the IT team or whatever, and we need them. They're smart people, they're experienced, but they let those people drive these initiatives. And like you've just said, because those people also love playing with new tools, new platforms, AI this, AI that, but they often are very limited in their business understanding. So that's why I say the driving force of the smart technology initiatives should be the visional business owners, supported by technology. But the IT guys are going to come and try and automate everything, play with more tools. Let's buy more bots. Let's do this, let's do that. Start with the business lens only. Then later, and vendors will do the same because, a lot of the automation and like robotic process automation vendors, their business model is to sell you as many licenses as possible. So they are going to look for a reason to sell you 20 bots and not maybe the 5 that you need. And a great way to do that is to let the vendor that helps you build your automation strategy not be the same vendor that's going to sell the technology to you, because their strategy will be built in a way to benefit from you as much as possible. So let the right vendor build the strategy with you, get another vendor to then sell the bots or the technology or the licenses from. But business leaders should lead these technologies or these initiatives supported by IT. Now, this brings us to a problem. Most business leaders that I deal with have no clue what they're talking about when it comes to AI, machine learning and stuff. Excuse me. Now, they don't have to become experts. They don't have to become quants or machine learning engineers. But a lot of what I do, especially in the executive education space, is to try and make business leaders understand the fundamentals of this technology. Firstly, let's just agree on the lingo. AI and RPA is not the same thing, or AI and automation, like you said earlier. So that when your vendors or your technology people come and talk to you and they start throwing all these things around, at least you've got an idea of what they're talking about. And then also be aware of the risks, because you're introducing risk to your business by using this technology. And also, what will your team structure look like in a year from now as you automate? But business people should not have an excuse of saying, I'm just relying on the techies, because then we're going to automate the crap out of everything. And that's most likely not what we need, I've seen it so many times.
Yeah. Love it. So let's jump a little bit to the misconceptions. So there are many things, and you mentioned, for example, lay off people and automating things. So what is, in your opinion, or what are the biggest misconceptions when it comes to AI that you would love to tackle? Maybe it's one big, maybe several. Just curious what about your thoughts.
I think that misconceptions for me are on two sides of the spectrum. On the one hand, people think this technology is so incredibly great, so powerful, it can just fix all of our problems. And to a large extent, AI is not nearly as smart as people think it is. Now, we know that the technology is growing exponentially, but it's still fairly limited. It's still currently still very reliant on how we program it and build it and how we allow for the models to learn. But it cannot just come in and just fix everything. So that's the one extreme. It is so powerful, which is it's not. The other extreme is that we fear it. We don't think we need it. We think it's just hype. It's not. It's not going to help us at all. So it's somewhere in those spectrum. Most people I deal with fall. I think Hollywood is to blame for a lot of the misconceptions. You know, what I often
Yes.
what I often like to do when I speak at a conference is I will bring up three pictures. One picture will be that Terminator bot with the red eyes. You know, that evil
Yes.
looking robot. The next picture will be a cute looking little bot. And in the middle, I've just got a picture of computer code. And I say to people, which of these three pictures for you most accurately describe what AI is? And more often than not, the bulk of the delegates will pick the evil robot. But the answer is none of the two robots. The answer is just computer code, because it is a creation of us, which we code. And yes, in time, it might create itself as it goes along, which is a scary thing. But it's not a funny little cute bot that's just there to help us. It's not an evil bad bot that's there just to destroy us. It is coding. And that's where a lot of the misconceptions come in. But I think so people misunderstand what it is, how powerful it is, and what it should be used for. So, and I often tell my customers, use the right technology to achieve the right goals in the right ways. And if you can do those three things, whether it's automation or AI, whatever, you'll most likely be successful. But one of those three, and in most cases, all of those three are wrong in how they're approaching this technology.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's yeah. Yeah, I got it. So in the short term, they are overestimating what AI is capable of, but in the long term, they don't see the value that you get from the AI. So this is also a lot of time the things that I hear. Yeah, yeah, I would
Okay.
agree. Yeah, cool. What trends do you see with an AI? So I mean, you're also consulting. What is, in your opinion, in the midterm or long term vision? What what possibilities and what risks do you see when it comes to AI?
I think there's this, Jakob, this what I call convergence of technology. So I often draw a circle in the middle and a circle on the outside to explain it. And in the middle, you've got AI, machine learning, edge computing, cloud computing, quantum computing, all this stuff. But it's
Yeah.
becoming closer and closer together, where, as I say, if we think of true intelligent automation, it's RPA and AI, amongst other things. And then if we think of IoT, or especially edge computing, where you harvest millions of data lines from your sensors, whether that's in your fleet of cars or in your power plant or in your airplane, it's taking all that data and dynamically interpreting it and autonomously actioning things. So if the airplane is flying and there's a problem on the one flap, the corrective actions, it can be automated without a human. The human can see the alert, the pilot, but what that sensor is telling us can be corrected autonomously. As one example, it could be. It's also that these sensors are now, and that's just where edge computing comes in, as opposed to IoT. The power of the processing lies in the device itself. It's no longer just like a weather station that's sending the rainfall to a central database. These sensors can also give each other instructions. So, for instance, if you have facial recognition at your business, and you see somebody wearing a helmet is coming into the door, that you could, for instance, trigger that the second door just doesn't open, because why is somebody wearing a helmet coming into your business? No human involved yet. You've set the perimeters previously. Where it is going is where it can become scary. It's like all technologies, all innovations through the ages, a double-edged sword, Jakob. On the one hand, the potential healthcare, educational, societal benefits can be incredibly positive. So a lot of people who are talking about kind of post-humanism, or the like. They talk about this very beneficial future that we can create, and it is possible. But knowing human nature, and because we're selfish and tribal, we'll most likely use it for the dystopic view as opposed to the utopic view. And this is where I often think, one of my favorite authors from the 1930s, George Orwell, he's, especially his book, 1984, which, yes, it was written in a time where he was commenting on Soviet era Russia and the like, but, speaking about Big Brother, the thought police, right speak, the fact that in every room there's a telescreen that can not only you see it, but it can see you. Think of it, all of our computers, most of our smart TVs looks at us. So we are creating this world in which, especially our children, will be under constant surveillance. And what are we going to follow China with their social I can't remember what they call it now, but they are social obedience. So in other words, if you are not obedient to the state, then you're either punished or you don't get access to credit or
this point system that they implemented.
So I think I'm going to go there, unfortunately. Absolutely. The power that the state or organizations can have over people will be incredible. And that's especially if you read Yuval Noah Harari, Sapiens, Homo Deus. He speaks a lot about that. Nick Bostrom is author of Superintelligence, Oxford professor. So it's important that more and more philosophers and ethicists are becoming part of this conversation. And luckily, I'm seeing that. It can't just be a technology conference. We need people, a multidisciplinary team. I'm actually busy writing my Business Day article today. It's about this fact that when you try and bring in the smart technology, make sure legal is involved, human resources are involved, that you have ethicists and philosophers involved, and so forth. So don't just, again, don't let the techies themselves do it. Make sure you understand the total impact and the other thing, which is this biases in data, Jakob, that we've seen in facial recognition, which struggles with female faces or darker skin tones. We've seen false arrests, especially in the US of the last 2-3 years. Also have people in your AI team who are from not just one gender, multi-gender, however you want to see it, multi-ethnicity, multi-age groups, and if you can, from different areas in the world. Because as humans, we all have our biases, even if we mean well. So if we're just a bunch of white guys creating something, which is the case of facial recognition, it's not going to benefit females and it's not going to benefit other ethnicities. Make sure that multidisciplinary, multi-gender ethnicity team is part of your team building this technology. I hope I answered your question, but just let me know.
Definitely. So diversity is the big topic. So I have conversation with a guy from Singapore, Andit. He's a risk manager and also active in a non-profit organization, which speaks about these risks, and bias is a big topic. So that's very important because many people think, well, it's an AI, it's perfect. I tried to create a bank account and I was denied, and I made a call and I asked why, and he said, yeah, well, that's our AI. We are not involved in that. And I said, well, it doesn't make sense. Sorry. And no, it's AI. It's perfect. And I thought, okay, that's it. I don't want to do this. But I thought, well, if you think it's perfect, you have a big trouble and you don't understand AI because it is made by humans who are biased. So there is something,
Yeah, no, you're using such a great example. Access to credit or even access to healthcare. I mean, if you and I have the exact same credit score, same kind of income, don't have bad debt or whatever, but I just live on the wrong side of the tracks in our town, the algorithm might see me living there as a higher risk than you. Now, it's one thing if it is banking. What if it's healthcare? What if the algorithm decides when my sick son can see a doctor? And the biases put me 14th in the row and not first because he's like having seizures or whatever, for instance. So, no, so that what we do with the data, how we let these algorithms learn from the right kind of data in a responsible way is maybe one of our biggest challenges for the foreseeable future when we speak about this technology.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So the topic of AI governance is, I think, a growing topic, which becomes more and more important because so how do we make sure that the AI which produces decisions is doing right? And what is happening when we got a lawsuit and a couple of lawyers are coming? Who's responsible for mistakes, the AI or the programmer who made the AI or the CEO of the company? So these are all topics that are not yet very
Oh,
well
you're so
thought
right.
through. Yeah.
You're so right.
So
Yeah, in South Africa, we have very strong privacy. It's very much aligned to GDPR in Europe, but
okay.
we've got no regulation on the ethical use of data or on responsible AI whatsoever. And I think a lot of the world sits in that same place. I mean, Europe seems to be further ahead than most areas with the EU legislation on this data, but to a large extent, we're still grappling, figuring out how to use this. Now, excuse me. Back to your banking example, I would like, if whether it's a chatbot, like a text chatbot or a conversational a voice AI or an algorithm, the bank should tell me, you are now going to engage an AI. Or do you want to opt out? Because if I opt out, hopefully I go through to a human. But and there's no legislation that I know of around this where you should give customers advance notice that technology is making this decision on you, not a human. And if you're not happy with the technology decision because you think it's wrong, in your example, there's no recourse. There's nothing you can do about it. You should have a recourse to say, I disagree with this. I want to speak to a human being. That is a problem that we're grappling with. And this is where regulation should be able to stipulate, that we know when we're interacting with these systems and what can we do if we don't agree with the decisions that these systems make, because they are inevitably going to make mistakes.
Yeah. So the funny thing is, I was the client, and then I had a conversation with two people from the bank, and both said we don't have information about, we don't have access to it. And I thought, I mean, you're working in the bank, that doesn't make sense. But anyway, so we didn't want to make this a big topic, but it was just fascinating that they trusted the AI so much that they even don't think about that it could make failures. That's the thing that scared a little bit me, because what else can happen? I mean, with the health topic that you mentioned, that's a exactly horrifying thing that could happen in the future. So yeah, so just be that's the reason why I started the show. That's the reason why we're speaking about these topics, and I will have more of these discussions because they are important so that people get to
Very.
think in this
And
direction.
Jakob, it's good that you have different guests because we all bring our own lens, our own
Yes.
view, and it's good to have people with different views. And sometimes we might even contradict each other, but then we can have a respectful, healthy debate. Also, if we talk about the weaponization of AI, which is already a reality, because there are signs that this is happening in Ukraine at the moment. We know that drones have very smart sensors. They also have facial recognition sensors. So a drone can say, according to the facial recognition, that person is the terrorist we need to kill. But typically that information goes back to a commander, a human, who will then make the kill or no kill decision. But the autonomous killing decision, in other words, what if the drone just decides or can, because it's built this way in its software, that, okay, that facial recognition says that is my target, launch the missile. Now, what if that person walks with a small child on his or her hand? A human would most likely not fire the missile. Some might. But now, how do we teach the AI the ethics of human value? Is if that other human whose face you can't recognize but is smaller than your target. So that's what I'm saying. There's rumors. I think it's most likely true that autonomous killing decisions are made in the Ukraine war by most likely both sides. All we know. This is serious stuff, eh?
Yeah, scary. I mean, really, thank you. I mean, I could talk one more hour with you, but we are a little bit limited on our time. When people want to get in contact with you, where should they go? Where do they get more information?
Thank you, Jakob. Best is my website, because there you can read my articles. There's a link to my LinkedIn profile, my Twitter profile, my email address, and that is ai4business.net.
Mm-hmm.
So AI and then FOR business.net. Easiest way, or just look up for my name and surname under LinkedIn. People can find me. Then I'm happy to collaborate with whoever wants to reach out and learn from them as well.
Awesome. Final question. I'm always looking for new guests. This is the cool thing about having a live show. So is there somebody who you could recommend for this kind of live show? So somebody in the AI niche, somebody, it doesn't have to be content AI, but it could be also only AI, consultant, business owner, or founder of a software company, people like that. If there's somebody, would love to get an introduction. Yeah.
Absolutely. I can think of quite a few. And the one I think of in particular is my mentor, Dr. Jacques Ludik in Cape Town. Amazing person to speak with, but I'll offline, I can maybe introduce you to him on LinkedIn or email, Jakob. But there are many people that I think is worth interviewing. All are smarter than me, so it's better to speak to them than to me, I think.
Yeah, awesome. Would love to get intro. So always eager and curious about new inputs and new expertise. That's awesome. Awesome. Is there something, the last statement, or something that you want to share?
Yeah, firstly, thank you for this wonderful opportunity. I hope the delegates enjoyed it, Jakob. And we were talking about some very interesting and serious things. Some of it, I have no idea what we're going to do with it. But you're doing a good thing. I want to encourage you, keep on doing this, keep on getting the message out there now. So it's been a great honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. And it was really great topics. And yeah, we'll definitely change a couple of things in my own business and get new ideas from you. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Jakob. Appreciate it.
And if there are any questions, just let me know in the comments and I can forward to Johan. And yeah, thank you and see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.